What's up everyone, Snowflake Dan here with you. Today we're going to be covering over how to set up Azure Entry ID SCIM to Snowflake. This will allow our Azure ID to provision users and roles in our Snowflake account. So let's get to it. So here on the page, you can see we've got a tutorial website. We're going to use this website the entirety of the time to grab code snippets and also to follow along where we are in the process. So awesome, let's get straight to it. So the first thing we'll want to do is start up a worksheet and copy this code. So I'll head it back to Snowflake, we'll go to Projects, Worksheet, and we'll create a new worksheet. Next, we'll paste in our code, and I'm going to talk about this for a second because I think that it's very useful when you're going to apply it to your users and roles. So the first thing we'll want to do is create a role. It's going to be the Azure AD provisioner role. This is the role we're going to use, or we're going to have allow Azure to use to provision users and roles. So we'll first run on that one. The next thing we'll want to do is grant that role to the account admin so that we have that lineage on the account so that it's underneath the account admin. Next, we'll want to grant create user on the account so that Azure AD can create users. Next, we'll grant create roles on there so that it can create the roles that our groups are tied to. Next, we'll create a role called engineer. This is the Azure AD group we're going to use later. Then we'll grant it to sysadmin. And the most important part is right here where we grant ownership of engineer to Azure AD provisioner. If Azure AD provisioner does not own the role, it will not be able to provision it or manage it. And finally, we'll create a security integration. If you ever want to change the name of this AAD provisioner role, you'll have to change it down here as well. Perfect. So we'll select all of that. We'll hit run. Perfect. Then we'll head back to the tutorial. And there's another section where we're going to grab our tenant URL and our token that we'll have to put into Azure later. So we'll copy that. We'll paste it back into our worksheet. And then I'll hit run on the first one so that we can copy it. I'll just simply add a comment block here and I'll paste in that URL. Next is the token. So again, we'll copy it. We don't have to worry about security here because by the time this video goes live, this will all be gone. Perfect. So let's head back to the tutorial. The next thing we'll want to do is actually set up our enterprise application inside of Azure Entry ID. So let's head back. We'll go to Entra ID. We'll go to Enterprise Applications and we'll create a new application. We'll look up Snowflake and we'll click it and click Create. Now, if you already have Azure SSO, you don't have to worry about this step. You don't have to create a separate application. This is only for the first time you've ever done this. Perfect. So now we have the enterprise application up. We'll head back to the tutorial. And you can see we want to go to provisioning. So we'll head over to provisioning. We'll want to set up a new configuration. And you can see here we need the tenant URL and the secret token that we got from Snowflake earlier. So we'll head back to Snowflake. We'll copy that URL first. We'll grab our token, making sure not to grab the comment block. And we'll test our connection. And we can see it was successful, so we'll click Create. And we'll head back to the tutorial and get to where we need to be. Perfect. So the next part is going to be setting up the group that will be a role inside of Snowflake. So we'll head back. We'll head to the nav bar. We'll go to groups. We'll add a new group. You can see that we could keep the group type as security. If we want to validate, we can go back to our tutorial, look at what's required. So it'll be security, engineer, a description, and then we'll select our members for that group. Perfect. So I'm going to copy and paste the name that we've created earlier for that role. So we'll head back. We'll put in that group name. We'll add a description. This is the engineer role in Snowflake. Perfect. We'll select our members. Now select myself. And we'll click create. Perfect. So now we have our role with engineer and we have our user inside of there. Perfect. Moving on. Next thing we'll want to do is add the group itself to our enterprise application. So we'll want to go back to Azure, our enterprise application. That's my fault. Jumped a step before that. So we'll click on our enterprise applications. We'll assign users and groups. Next, we'll add users and groups. We'll select the group. We'll want to validate that it's only the group and not the user, because we're not here to provision just the user. We actually want to provision both the user and the role. Perfect. So we'll click select. We'll click assign. Then we'll head back to the tutorial. And the next thing we'll want to do is head over to provisioning. And we're going to start the provisioning process. So let's go to provisioning. Let's start provisioning and click yes. Now what provisioning is it's actually the automated way of allowing Entra ID to automatically provision without constantly have to click the on-demand provision now button. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're actually going to want to provision now because we want to see those results. So we'll head back to the tutorial. We'll want to go to provision on demand. And we'll want to select our group with the user. So we'll click provision on demand. We'll look up our group. And you can see we've got the engineer here. We can select the user we want to provision. And then we can click the provision button. Let's head back to the tutorial. Now, if we're successful, we should see 4 green lights, and then we can head into Snowflake, see our user, and that user should be assigned the engineering role. So we'll head back to Azure. We were successful. We've got 4 green check boxes, and then we'll head back to Snowflake, and we'll go to governance and security, users and roles. And if I do a quick refresh, you could see that now my user is provisioned. And if we click into it, you could see that he has the engineering role. Perfect. So now, because I've gotten this question a lot, is what happens if I remove the user and the group from it? What would happen to that user inside of Snowflake? So we'll head back to the tutorial. And you can notice now, if you remove a group, it will remove that role, or if you remove the group, it will remove that role from the Snowflake account. Also, if you remove that user from, or that group, essentially you're also removing that user, it will then disable the user. It will not remove the user, because sometimes people want to have access to that user so that they could go into the worksheets and see what they've been working on or pull something from their user database. So instead of deleting it, Snowflake decides to disable it, which allows you to edit the password and then log in. Awesome. So this has been Snowflake with Azure Entry ID SCIM. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.